الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله وما توفيقي ولا اعتصامي ولا توكلي إلا على الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إقرارا بربوبيته وإرغاما لمن جحد به وكفر وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم رسول الله سيد الخلق والبشر ما اتصلت عين بنظر أو سمعت أذن بخبر اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وعلى ذريته ومن والاه ومن تبعه إلى يوم الدين. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه واجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه وأدخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله، فاتقوا الله حق تقاته فهي خير عدة للمسلم. قال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. I bear witness that there is no God or deity worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, peace and blessings be upon him, is the final messenger, delivered the message, guided the ummah, and showed us the righteous way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, indeed, the book before your hand is the righteous book. For those who have pious love and fear of Allah in their heart, they'll find guidance that will lead them to heaven. And sends a clear, unequivocal warning to those who equate idols with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying they know nothing about this, nor do their parents, and promises them a place in the hellfire, wal-'iyadhu billah. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me here again. From last week and this week, and inshallah in the future, you'll see different themes for the khutbah. This is not your traditional khutbah where we talk about things that are important to us only, but we talk about things that happened in the past and see how we can implement them today in this society, in this community, in this neighborhood. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is Sayyidul Khalqi wal Bashar. And by the way, the khutbah is going to be in Arabic and English, not direct translations of each other, but complementary to each other. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sayyidul Khalqi wal Bashar. There's a lot to learn from Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. We learn a lot from him. He's the one that emulated the religion for us. Sahaba are the ones that took it and copied what he did. So if we want to look for an example in this life, we look to Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. He is the right example. He is the measuring stick that we measure everything we do to. And he is the one that we compare ourselves to and strive to be as good. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that on Judgment Day that we take a drink from his hand. Min al-Hawd al-Sharif. A drink of water that we feel no thirst after that. But in order for us to do that, we have to learn what he did, study what he did, and implement it in our life. Sirat al-Rasul alayhi salatu wa-salam tawila. It's a long seerah. We can spend khutbahs and decades talking about that. Today I'm going to focus in the next 45 minutes, we're going to focus on the last 3 days of the life of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and try to learn as much as we can from these 3 days. If someone was to do something and to summarize their message, give wisdom and pass words, they're going to try to do it in the last few hours they have in this life. So let's examine the life of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam in the last 3 days. قبل وفاته بثلاثة أيام بدأ الوجع يشتد عليه. He was sick alayhi salatu wasalam, and he became very sick in the last 3 days. وكان في بيت السيدة ميمونة. Those of us who've been to Medina and know how hujurat, the rooms for the wives of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam were around the mosque. He was in Hujrat al-Sayyida Maymuna. We're talking about the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the messenger of Allah. الذي لا ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى. The one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took from Mecca to Bayt al-Maqdis and ascended it to the sky, to the heavens, في رحلة الإسراء والمعراج. The one that was given or offered to be the king of kings by Quraysh and the Jews, and just stopped from broadcasting this religion, he said no. The one that needs no one's permission. I'm trying to set the theme here in the context of what we're about to talk about. He doesn't need my opinion. He doesn't need his wife's opinion. He doesn't need the Sahaba's opinion. Yet, he was asking them. So he was in Hujrat al-Sayyida Maymuna, and he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, Ijma'u zawjati, gather my wives. فَجُمِعَتِ الزَّوْجَةِ. And they gathered في حجرة السيدة ميمونة. Sayyid al-Khalqi wal-Bashar says, أتأذنون لي أن أمرض في بيت عائشة? Do you give me permission to go to Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha's room? He doesn't need their permission. He doesn't need them to say yes or no. He could have said, just take me there. What do we learn from that? We learn that Islam treats women in a very special way. Islam dignifies women. And we'll spend a khutbah, inshallah, talking about that, just the placement of women in Islam. But from that, we take that their opinion is important. And they are equal to us in this life. Either Sayyid al-Khalq, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, gathered them and asked permission. Who are we to live in this day and age and completely ignore our wives, our mothers, and other women in our lives and say, no, I know what I need to do. I don't need to ask you. I'm the boss here, I can deal with this. فَقُلْنَا نَأْذَنْ لَكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. We give you permission. He wanted to get up, but he couldn't. He was so sick. فجاء علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه والفضل بن العباس, the two Sahabas, and carried Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام من حجرة السيدة ميمونة إلى حجرة السيدة عائشة. And then this was the first time the Sahaba who were gathered in the masjid, remember these rooms were around the masjid, saw Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام in this condition. He was sick, no one saw him, and they saw him in this condition. فتجمع الناس في المسجد, people gathered, and it filled up pretty quickly. فبدأ العرق يتصبب بين النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام بغزارة. He started becoming sweaty. فقالت سيدة عائشة رضي الله عنها لم أرى في حياتي أحدا يتصبب عرقا بهذا الشكل. الأنبياء are tested at a different level. So he was drenched in sweat. Entered غرفة عائشة رضي الله عنها. كنت آخذ بيد النبي. عائشة رضي الله عنها تروي this, says this. She takes his hand and wipes his sweat. She said, his hand is better than my hand. Aisha رضي الله عنها said that, and she wipes his sweat. فأسمعه يقول, and he was saying, لا إله إلا الله إن للموت سكرات. عليه الصلاة والسلام knew what's going to happen. So he's saying, لا إله إلا الله إن للموت سكرات. فتقول السيدة عائشة فكثر اللغط في المسجد. People started, you know, when you hear people talking in the masjid and it's all of a sudden not quiet and people are talking all the time. So she didn't know what she wanted to do. Rasulullah ﷺ asked, what is going on? Remember, the room is like in the back of this masjid. What is going on? And she answered, Ya Rasulullah, they're worried about you. يَخَافُونَ عَلَيْكَ يا رسول الله. فقال احملوني إليهم. Carry me to them. From the last 3 days, brothers and sisters, we can spend decades learning from this. The responsibility of the leader upon the followers is great here. He didn't say, I'm sick, tell them I'm okay. He didn't send Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and say, tell them what I need to tell them. He said, احملوني إليهم. Carry me to them. Are we that kind of leader today? Or are we abrogating our responsibility at the first time that we feel that we're not up to it or I don't feel like it? And that responsibility starts at home, brothers and sisters. Are you asking the tough questions at home to your kids, to your wife, to your significant others? Are you asking those questions? Where did you get this from? Where were you today? How is school going? Why aren't you grazed the right way? These answers may bring more headaches, but that is the responsibility that we are in. That is the position that we chose. We brought them with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will to this life. We need to be the kind of leaders that they need to see. He wanted to get up to go to the masjid. He couldn't. Sayyidah Aisha says, from the fever that he had, فَصَبُّوا عَلَيْهِ سَبْعَ قِرَبٍ مِّنَ الْمَاءِ حَتَّى يَفِيقَ. 7 jugs of water just to cool him down a little bit so he can get up and go to the masjid. فحمل النبي وصعد إلى المنبر. وهذه كانت آخر مرة عليه الصلاة والسلام يصعد إلى المنبر. He was carried and he was put on the minbar. فكانت هذه آخر خطبة للرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام. But you take this as a summary of the entire journey. Not only his actions, but he did say some things on that day when he was on the minbar at that time. And shame on us if we don't take these words and live them as the summary of this entire religion. He had a few minutes to talk, so he talked about the important things, and let's see what they are. And he said, أيها الناس كأنكم تخافون علي. I feel that you're worried about me. فقالوا نعم يا رسول الله. فقال أيها الناس, O people, موعدكم معي ليس بالدنيا. Our meeting time is not in this life. How hard do we run after things in this life? And we keep running and running and running, and we show up late to salah and we miss salah. And sometimes we miss siyam, and sometimes we miss zakah, and we miss hajj because we're running after this life. And alayhi salatu wasalam started by saying, موعدكم معي ليس في الدنيا. This is not the place that we're supposed to meet. موعدكم معي عند الحوض. At the basin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. That is the meeting place. It's not a haphazard meeting place that I can go through life doing whatever I feel like and I said, I have an appointment with Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, let me through. I need to do my part so I can be there at that time. ولكأني والله لكأني أنظر إليه من مقامي هذا فرفعنا عنك غطاؤك فبصرك اليوم حديد. عليه الصلاة والسلام is standing there saying, I see the basin from where I'm standing right here, from المنبر في المسجد النبوي في المدينة. And he says, أيها الناس, or people, والله ما الفقر أخشى عليكم. I don't feel poverty. No, poverty comes and goes, money comes and goes. ولكن أخشى عليكم الدنيا. I fear this life that you're in. أن تنافسوها كما تنافسه الذين من قبلكم. You're going to be in this endless, they call it here a rat race. That you're always running and running and running just like the people before you, and you're going to forget the mission that we talked about last week. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. He didn't create us so we can be in this rat race running after money and fame and positions. He created us to worship Him. فَتُهْلِكُكُمْ كَمَا أَهْلَكَتْهُمْ. And you're going to be wiped clean in this life and the afterlife because of this dunya, just like it did to them. ثُمَّ قَالَ. So he finished this part. Our meeting time is not here. We need to remember that our time here on this life is temporary. We need to work on preparing for the afterlife. Sheikh Sha'rawi rahmatullah alayhi said, تَزَوَّدُوا. We are here to take things with us, to collect things in this life, to take them with us to the afterlife. And the only thing that will transcend this life to the afterlife are good deeds. No money, no kids, no clothes, no house, no cars, no positions, none of that will show up on Judgment Day. The only thing that will show up with you on Judgment Day are your good deeds. So that is what we need to pack here. Then he's going to summarize the religion now. He's going to summarize Islam, this entire journey, starting in Mecca, exile to Shi'ab Mecca, then move to Medina, then move back to Mecca, then move back to Medina, Al-Ghazawat, and everything that happened. أيها الناس, Allah, Allah في الصلاة. Allah, Allah في الصلاة. As if this entire religion is summarized in Salah. And Shaykh Sha'rawi rahmatullah alayhi, he has a very nice idea about this. He said, in Salah, you gather the 5 pillars of Islam. It's like how? So the 5 pillars of Islam, Shahadat an la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, wa iqam as-salah, wa ita' az-zakah, wa hajj al-bayt. All these things are gathered in the Salah. So he said, with that in Salah, you're standing there in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're committing and testifying to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Salah, you're doing Salah. In Salah, you're taking out time out of your day that you can earn money from, and money, time equals money, so that's like zakah. In Salah, like Hajj al-Bayt, you're going towards the Kaaba. In Salah, it's like Siyam, you're not eating or doing anything at that point in time. So all the 5 pillars of Islam are gathered in that. What he's saying, أَسْتَحْلِفُكُمُ اللَّهِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. And if you look at the Muslims today, إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبِّي, the majority, that's the first thing that they don't do. And it's like, I pray. Yeah, brother, you pray, but you pray Fajr at 11 o'clock in the morning. And you pray Dhuhr and Asr together probably at 7 o'clock at night. And Maghrib and Isha, you're praying them together. And all of these you can sum up in like 3 minutes. That is not prayers. Salah is something that we need to be programmed around. And we talked about that last week too. Your entire day needs to be programmed around Salah. You wake up for Fajr before the sun comes up to pray Fajr. And you pray Duha when the sun comes up. And then you prepare for Dhuhr. Keep that in mind, program your entire day around Salah. If it wasn't important, Rasulullah would have talked about something else with the last few words he said. He would have talked about zakah, he would have talked about hajj, he would have talked about something else. But he knew that this is the pillar. As-salah imad ad-din. So we need to make sure that we take from that a promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Ya Allah, I promise you from this day forward, I'm going to do salah on time. I'm going to pray every salah on its time. Not when I feel like it, not when I'm free, but I'm going to program my day that way. Then he talked about a dunya, he talked about a religion, and then he's going to talk about us. ثم قال أيها الناس اتقوا الله في النساء اتقوا الله في النساء أوصيكم خيرا في النساء. Half of the society, the better half of the society, the women that they're our mothers, our sisters, our wives, and our daughters. Alayhi salatu wasalam says, ittaqullah fi nisa, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in women. That's what it means, ittaqullah. Ittaqullah, fear a great punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you don't do right by them. Not only the women that you're entrusted with, your mother, your sister, your daughter, your wife, but in women in general. Keep your eyes to yourself. Don't do something that you don't wish to be done upon you. Treat them as equals in this society. Give them the place that Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. And he kept repeating it and repeating it. ثم قال أيها الناس إن عبدا. Now he's talking about himself. He talked about this dunya, the religion, each other. Now he's talking about himself. إن عبدا خيره الله بين الدنيا وبين ما عند الله فاختار ما عند الله. He is telling people, I was given the choice to stay in this dunya with you or meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I chose to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because they were so upset, because things were in a chaotic state, no one understood that. No one understood that he meant himself, of course. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu هو الوحيد الذي فهم هذه الجملة. He understood that. And he started crying. And he started crying out loud. And he stood up and interrupted Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. And he said, فَدَيْنَاكَ بِآبَائِنَا فَدَيْنَاكَ بِأُمَّهَاتِنَا فَدَيْنَاكَ بِأَوْلَادِنَا وَبِأَزْوَاجِنَا فَدَيْنَاكَ بِأَمْوَالِنَا. And he kept repeating it. Brother, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was so passionate. He's the companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The companion that is mentioned in the Quran. ثاني اثنين. He's the second one in the ghar with Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. And people looked at him in wonder. How dare you interrupt Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam? How dare you stand up and say that? He didn't talk about any of the Sahaba. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam answered, أيها الناس دعوا أبو بكر. Leave Abu Bakr alone. Everyone who did something, he was rewarded for it. Except Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, I could not reward him for what he's done. فَتَرَكْتُ مُكَافَأَتَهُ لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. His reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَكُلْ أَبْوَابِ الْمَسْجِدِ تُسَدْ إِلَّا بَابَ أَبُو بَكْرَ لَا يُسَدْ أَبَدًا. So he is telling us this is his companion. This is the one that was with him from day one on this journey. This is the one that migrated with him. And he's telling people he has a special place not only with Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, but with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. آخر كلمات. The last words he said as he was leaving the minbar. آواكم الله, حفظكم الله, نصركم الله, ثبتكم الله, أيدكم الله. May Allah be with you. And this requires you to do something, brothers and sisters. Allah cannot be with one that does not want to be with him. Allah does not want to be with one who is spending the nights, playing cards or drinking or doing things that are just a waste of time. If we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with us, we need to be with him. We need to do our part. We need to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it starts with salah. And it starts with behaving ourselves. And it starts with implementing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. And Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam wasana bihi. And the last word he said, أيها الناس اقرأوا مني السلام كل من تبعني من أمتي إلى يوم القيامة. We are receiving that peace today. That greeting from Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam is carried from that time he was on the minbar till we are here today. Through the prayers, through the Quran that we read, and through keeping his sunnah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the second part of the khutbah, inshallah, we'll talk about when he returns to the hujrah and what happens after that. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Brothers and sisters, today we're summarizing the last 3 days of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, not just as a story, but for things that we can take from that and implement in our life. He was carried to Hujrat Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, and many things happened there, but we're not going to get into all the details. I'm going to talk about very few things here. And this part, please forgive me, gets very emotional here. دخلت فاطمة رضي الله عنها, the daughter of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. She cried because he couldn't get up. He was sick and she's not used to it. She cried because he used to kiss her between her eyes every time she comes in the room, and he couldn't do that day. And he said, come close. Idnu minni ya Fatima. His daughter, the placement of women, the wives, the daughters, the mothers in this religion. Look at that and look how we treat our daughters, our wives, and our mothers in this life. How many of us involve them? How many of us have a dialogue with them? So she comes close to him and he says something to her and she cries. And she walks away and he said, come back. And he says something to her again and she smiles. And then, after he died, she was asked, what did he tell you? He said, when she cried, he said, Inni mayyutun al-layla. He's dying that night. And when she laughed, he said, you're the first one that's going to follow me. Then, alayhi salatu wasalam said, leave. I don't want anyone here. اخرجوا من عندي في البيت. I don't want anyone in this room. Idnu minni ya Aisha. And he asked Aisha radiallahu anha to come close. Sick and tired and worn out. The words coming up out of his mouth. بل الرفيق الأعلى. بل الرفيق الأعلى. Wanting to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the soul that he gave. لِلَّهِ مَا أَعْطَى وَلِلَّهِ مَا أَخَذَ. And the moment has come. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةِ الْمَوْتِ. No one is going to live forever. أَفْضَلَ الْخَلْقِ passed away. And we walk around on this earth thinking that we're going to be here forever. We break ties and don't mend them because we think I have time to fix this. We don't do things because I think I have time to do this. I'm not going to pray today, I'll pray tomorrow. I didn't pay zakah that I should have, I'll pray tomorrow. How do you know you're guaranteed to live another second, let alone guaranteed to live another day? فتحت سيدة عائشة باب الحجرة, she opened the door and says, مات رسول الله. People in the masjid could not keep it together. This is not something that they were prepared for. Even though they are Muslims, they are Sahaba, they are the ones that went with him for Ghazawat. They are not the people 1,500 years later in Fairfax County sitting in an air-conditioned masjid listening to this. These are the toughest of the tough. These are the believers. These are Sahaba. Amongst them are people Mubashirin bil Jannah. Could not take that news. Ali bin Abi Talib collapsed. He could not move. Uthman bin Affan, he started clapping his hands like this. Did not know what to do. Umar bin Khattab raised his sword and he said, anyone that says Rasulullah is dead, I'm going to chop his head off. These are the toughest of the tough, brothers and sisters. These are the people that defended Rasulullah throughout his journey. Umar bin Khattab says, إِنَّهُ ذَهَبَ لِلِقَاءِ رَبِّهِ كَمَا ذَهَبَ مُوسَى alayhi salam. He went to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's coming back. Musa left for 40 nights and came back. I'm going to kill whoever says that he's dead. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the companion, the one that they call a soft heart, by the way, that he has a soft heart, stood up and reminded people with the verse in the Quran. من كان يعبد الله فإن الله حي لا يموت. من كان يعبد محمدا فإن محمدا قد مات. ومن كان يعبد الله فإن الله حي لا يموت. If you were worshipping Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he's dead. If you were worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's eternal, he's never going to die. Reminding people again that this is not a cult. This is not a monarchy. This is a religion, this is a mission of life. Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam embodied that mission. Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam showed us the path, but he is not God. He is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he kept saying, من كان يعبد محمدا فإن محمدا قد مات ومن كان يعبد الله فإن الله حي لا يموت. When Umar bin Khattab heard that, the sword fell out of his hand. This was the wake-up shock to everyone. Yes, they loved the Prophet, and they would have given anything, themselves, their lives, their fathers, their mothers, all their money, and they've done that. So when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu stood up in the khutbah and said, فَدَيْنَاكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, we'll give anything for you, Ya Rasulullah. These are not words. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu has done that. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu gave all of his money. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu left Mecca with him. And he's not the only one. So when you say, فَدَيْنَاكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, they're repeating things that they've done. فيقول عمر في هذه اللحظة فقد عرفت أنه قد مات. I knew then that he was dead. Is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu stood up and was able to comprehend this. And he left the masjid and sat somewhere to cry by himself. ودفن عليه الصلاة والسلام. He was buried, as we know, في الحجرة. So what do we take from all of this? This is not just an emotional khutbah that you feel about, hey, I feel for Rasulullah ﷺ, I love him. We need to take things from this and implement in our daily lives. So that meeting that he promised us, موعدكم موعدنا عند الحوض, will become true. So meeting him at the basin and having a drink from his hand becomes true. He has done his part. He delivered the message, guided the ummah, showed us the righteous way, embodied Islam in every transaction in his life, showed us what we need to do, left us in a place, اليوم أتممت لكم دينكم. Your entire religion is here. وأتممت عليكم نعمتي. I've done everything I can. ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. I've accepted this religion for you. But yet, you find people that are not fulfilling this mission. And we need not get far and think about, oh, that guy that was in the bar last night, or that girl that is not praying. Start with ourselves. I always say we need to start with ourselves. Ask yourself the question, what am I doing at home? How am I treating my wife and daughter? How am I treating my mother and sister? How am I raising my kids? Am I being the responsible person I need to be? Or am I taking the easy path? Am I turning my head so I don't have to ask the tough questions because I don't want to hear the answers? And I don't want to get into the argument and the discussion and setting the rules? Am I the righteous person making sure that I only bring halal food home and only earn halal money? Am I the righteous person that is making sure that I treat my brothers and sisters like they should be? Am I the righteous person that is treating women in the society like they should be? I don't have the answers for these things. Only you have the answers. Every time I lay in bed at night, I ask myself the question, what could have I done differently today? And what do I need to do different tomorrow? Not only with the religious stuff, did I pray, did I read Quran? Not that. It's the transactions that you do in this life, the interactions with others. I said something and I made someone upset today. Yes, I may have the right to do that, but I can do it differently. Like the brother said before the khutbah started, people don't know what's in your heart. People don't know what you're going through in life. I was on a khutbah a couple of weeks ago. The guy sitting in the front row, he received the news that his mother died right before Salah. No one knows that. You don't know what I'm going through. But what you see my actions. You see how I deal with things in this life. And that is, brothers and sisters, everything people see. If you say something kind, people will take that and say, this is what Islam is. And if you say something mean, people will take that and say, this is exactly what Islam is. If you park in someone's driveway, ignoring that they may need to go to the hospital, and you just block them because you feel like salah is more important, not only are they going to curse you, but they're going to curse your parents, and they're going to curse this religion and everyone that belongs to this religion. So not only did you bring a sin upon yourself, but you got us all involved in here. People remember your actions. People only remember your actions. I taught, and then I mentioned the story a long time ago, I taught at George Washington University for a long time. In one of my classes, there was a girl from Africa. She was a nanny here. And I was talking to her, and I said, what are you doing here? She goes, I'm a nanny and I'm a missionary. Tabshiriya. She came to this country to spread Christianity. She came to this country as a nanny to spread Christianity. I am who I am, with Muslims and non-Muslims, with Kafirs and everybody. It doesn't change who I am. I'm going to treat people the way that they should be treated. Not the way that I want to be treated, the way they should be treated, which is excellent way, in accordance with Islam, and always embodying Rasulullah alayhi salatu. We look at people that are non-believers in this country and say, oh my God, they're non-believers, they're going to hell. This and that are going to happen to them. The neighbor of Rasulullah alayhi salatu was a Jewish guy that was putting trash on his door for days and weeks and years. And when he stopped doing that, he went to ask about him. What happened? Are you okay? Who did we become to be so callous in the heart, to treat human beings in such a harsh way because they don't believe in what we believe? Show the kind side. Don't be a mat for someone to walk on, but show the kind side. Show the heart that people need to see. This girl that I'm telling you about, years later, I taught her one class, and that was it. We stayed in touch on LinkedIn, and she sent me a message a couple of years ago. She goes, this week I took Shahada in one of the masajid. I was like, you did that? I was shocked. She goes, yes, ever since I interacted with you. And there was another professor at GW, she was a female, and I interacted with her. It made me start asking questions about, why are you that way? It's not what religion are you from, that is irrelevant. Why are you that way? Why do you treat people that way? Why do you say things the way you do? Why do you make sure that there are boundaries that you don't cross? And brother and sister, I'm no angel here. I've done my fair share of mistakes and sins. So I'm not standing here lecturing, but I'm saying people look at these things and ask the questions. What makes you the person you are? Da'wah does not come from taking masahif and knocking on people's door and distributing masahif to people's door. This is not how da'wah comes. Because they're going to take that mushaf and throw it in the trash. When the Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house and knock on my door trying to hand me, I said, don't hand it to me. I'm going to throw it in the trash. I'm telling you that up front. Keep it with you, give it to someone else. This is not how da'wah becomes. Da'wah is your interaction, your actions, what you do. If you're a professional, if you're a dentist, and someone comes to you and they don't need a crown, just tell them, I can make a lot of money from this crown, but I'm not going to do it. You can hold off for another year or two. Let's try this fix or that. If you're a cab driver, you can do that. No matter what your job is, do it honestly like Rasulullah ﷺ. Follow the guidance of Rasulullah. Learn from these last 3 days that we talked about from his life. And become a beacon of Islam. Become a Quran that is walking on 2 feet. You never know what influence do you make in this life. Changing someone's path by 1 degree. This girl I'm telling you about, when my interactions with her in the class, probably changed things by 1 degree for her. If we all start walking from here to that door, and if we walk at a 90-degree angle, we'll hit that door. If one of us is off by a degree, 1 degree, it's going to end up probably at the wudu place. Imagine a life journey that you interact with someone and change their path by 1 degree, where they will end up years from now. So make sure that 1 degree that you're changing is in a positive direction, so they don't end up in prison or end up doing something. And it starts again with home. We were raised in a different culture. I was raised in a different culture. I was raised in a different place. Islam and prayers and all these things were not a big deal because that's what everyone does. So parents did not need to enforce these things. SubhanAllah, we came to this country with the idea, I can force my kids to pray. I can force them to fast, I can force them to believe, I can force them to do whatever I want them to do. Because they're my kids, I can do whatever I want to do. Only to find out that I'm completely wrong about this. Our youth here in this country are living with two faces. A face that we see at home and a face that they put on when they're out there in the society. And if you don't believe me, just look at YouTube for Muslim kids and see what they're doing outside the home. They put that mask on when they're home. You want me to pray? Allahu Akbar, I'll pray. You want me to fast? I'm fasting, I'm not eating. What do you want me to do? Tell me. Because they want to avoid the argument, they want to avoid the discussion, they want to make you happy. But when they leave the house, the majority of them are different people. So why not break that mask and start saying, I'm going to pray. If you want to pray, come join me. If you don't want to pray, I don't know what to tell you. The first few times they're going to ignore you. But eventually they're going to see that this is the right thing to do. Be prepared to answer tough questions. Be prepared to have a dialogue with them. When we were little, and I tell my kids this story, if I ask my mom a question about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she would smack me. Ask haram. This question is haram. Why are you asking that question? And kids here in this country have questions. Allah al-Azim, sometimes my son asks me a question, I'm like, I don't have an answer for you, but I can find an answer for you. Let them be inquisitive, because if they're not asking you, they're asking someone else, and someone else is filling that void. Learn from the last 3 days of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Make sure that we emulate the religion. Make sure that we show the example. Leadership, responsibility, treatment of women, what Islam is. Take these things to heart and think about them when you go home today. Think about them and say, what am I going to do? And you may have been doing great things all these years and say, I'm going to add to it today. I've been praying on time for years, decades. What's the big deal? Why is he talking about prayer? And the funny thing, the khatib talks about prayer for people that are in the masjid. These are the people that are praying to begin with. But that's okay. We can always do better. We can always do it on time. We can always add sunnah to it. And with that, we conclude and pray and say, Allahumma ahdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa barik Allahumma lana fi ma a'tayt, wa qina wasrif anna bi rahmatika sharra ma qadayt, innaka taqdi bil haqqi wa la yuqda alayk, innahu la ya'izzu man adayt, wa la yadhillu man walayt. تباركت ربنا وتعاليت اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك يا مولانا عزيز سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا إلهنا يا رب العالمين اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا دينا إلا وفيته ولا حاجة إلا قضيتها واجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مبرورا وتفرقنا من بعده معصوما مغفورا مرحوما اللهم ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا اللهم ارحم آباءنا وأمهاتنا كما ربيانا صغارا. Oh Allah, we ask you for your mercy. We ask you to bless this gathering and make our separation after that a blessed separation. We ask you to forgive us and forgive our loved ones. We ask you to enter our parents into heaven and spare them from adab al-qabr and show them their place in heaven. We ask you to gather us with them and our loved ones under your throne on the day of judgment when there's no shade but under your throne. We ask for a drink from the hand of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi salatu wasalam, a drink from al-hawd, from the basin that we feel no thirst after that. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima wa aqimu as-salat.